Hello, Weathersfield, Connecticut, in America, in New York, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, especially differentially, and demonstration of an invisible but still discernible identity of value progression, that all things are at once, and where and how all things are. Not just in a complete and increasing identity of volume, as that identity of volume. All things are the same exact way, not distinctly. While they are simultaneously distinctly. While they are simultaneously in demonstration of its simultaneous nature. From smaller than the smallest thing, as each small finite thing, as the order of the value of the order of the finite, as the finite, as what is active, as our progressive value to come that is here now and that is to come, that we know exists and not denying exceptions to an extent. To an extent we don't. The Trinity was revealed. Allah's name was revealed as parts of an identity the sciences share, lesson that was revealed, lesson/S that was revealed by the entire species using the same method. For example, how and why we are individual, grouped, and species body manifest. I tell it best. Bach sings. See, but they have reference to names and to value treatments. The sciences themselves abridged as victims to all locations, areas, and states of all modern nations. Since before this, since latter semi-ancient times, with the messenger of Islam, Rasulullah, alhamdulillah, and with Jesus Christ, thank God, with preservation, counter damage control, but as that which left its own identities of the ground, and so members, victims, with reactions and defenses of that, manifest inclusion, fake sides of correlation nature, everyone incapable of defending their quality of fact treatment nature styles in relationship to nature, forcing this, and of affording science's answer/S. I tell it best. Bach sings. So this is down to where and how they are they were each modern nation through criminal foreign influences, but it's not sourced by one nation. It already had and has recorded, confessed, demonstrated hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, however many there are, hundreds. Territories, all impositions on all here and there, time treatments, self-valued this way, in this torture method worse than that, that is simultaneously insidious and overt, and having engineered all to blame other things, others, and selves for the real causes of the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that are recorded in possession of each age of fact treatment nature, per database connected, but further and further to keep all identity the grounds of all locations, areas, and states further and further self-valued. Roles will self-appreciated. Criminal insidiousness by a method of, and by roles and needs and natures as. Criminal insidiousness natures. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. There are physical delusions. There are criminally foreign influence premises treatments that the sciences share. The branches of government individually grouped and together are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. They have the perfect world, with convictions tied to it, with opinions tied to it that are dishonest, and that was and is exploited, and having been exploited, that already had them roles as victims, but as victim predators, as breaching screens, tools, weapons, and worse, with what is intercities connected, worse than interstates and worse than internations alone. For example, there's things that they agree not to speak about here and there. There are time treatments where they're preventing mandated law so they can keep using the various natures of courts and of police forms, distinctly, non-distinctly, manifest every individual of them, grouped and together difference, value as victims, blaming the perfect world. For this is relevant, for example, there's another older even, than a guy who was an adult when I was a kid, who I didn't know all their names. And I still never had conversations with them ever. But they pretended other interbranch with a whole bunch of other people that are all recorded exceptions in exception nature connected in relationship to what is sustained to intercities, on off all database relationships, while on off campuses further, by and as that, and while off campus sciences further, as victims know too, and as on off, all from off campuses maintained originally and still self-valued what is on off them, more and more, through other natures of motivations, natures, needs, interests, individually grouped and together, formally and informally in overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Originally still self-valued because as victim predators, the industries themselves. Because of how we are fact-shaping nature has been prevented equality of free speech, where and as and how fake care for free speech was breaching method, engineered, self-valued to maintain engineered, self-cultivated, propagated fact-shaping nature qualities and styles as criminal seditious natures, per a breaching method, per a predicate acts delivery system method. Now with the transition from ACA to RICO, also agencies are recorded with worse than criminal incompetence here and there. Not one modern nation has integrity as identity, as their identity of the law treatments. No. But we're not allowed to connect any voice that is not abridged, private, interbranch campuses. This is in relationship to a magic trick method with sorting, with database relationships. But this is also where and how they are used remotely, since before computer definitions of that word remote, which it is clear as day as night. That which put black with the law sickly distinctly was to hide how sickly non-distinctly effectively. It was effectively to hide how sickly non-distinctly. There was laws like that against everyone. And how they maintained by that knave, dog A or B, positive or negative. Well, that's aggression, that's positive. Meanwhile, they're fabricating informations with child offenders, and they're shooting people with guns, the police. And as victim predators, the same way the nurses are kept victim reactions that don't know, the doctors, victim reactions that don't know. Everyone's relying upon mental health care people involved with various natures of courts. For a whole bunch of foreign and domestic families, for example, with crime methods, with database, that WFSB, people associated with Dr. Oz, these are wire crime methods. They attach me to fake locations. Now Dr. Oz is, like everyone, a victim. A great person is a person as an identity individual and grouped with with the species body, and then even more with that group and how he is individually with all the time to have answer / s in relationship to all the impositions upon humanity, wherein how there were impositions upon the republic for which we stand since semi-ancient times that are actually recorded. There are also recorded in takes on opinions on convictions regarding evidence. What is sound evidence? What is sound research? Simultaneously, because where and how these are takes on correlation nature, which nature is identity. You heard it here first. This is I've been trying to teach you guys. This is how the identity that is all things at once is in demonstration to us, even though it is invisible. It has a simultaneously distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to 5 semi-natures of itself that are invisible but discernible and discernibly connected to it, because it's like the same way with it's not this, it's way more than this, but to minimalize it, it's like with the diodes, with the computer. I believe it's called they either light or not, positive or not. So that's in relationship to, for example, binary. There's a 1 in there. There is a 1 present in that place or not. And that 1 stands for, that 1 is therefore coded to stand for, that positive is either stands for another number or itself, and then you add those numbers and you get a number. So I'll put some links to binary. But the point is, what that's used for, and then connect to letters, and then to sort things. And before we get into the debatable though, the database relationships, like for example, this is our take. People want to debate that it's not their opinion. They're dishonest, because this is also we're using truths. This is a scientific method that uses truth as a quality of fact, cheap in nature, capable of answering properly and timely the questions of American history, like what really motivated slavery, which is a predicate acts delivery system method that engineered then consciously, methodically, motivations and nature's needs roles that would self-value. The breaching method employed narratives on our American history. They stole our founding parents' identity from us in our faces, because they prevented correlation nature, because they prevented free speech and had that self-value and we're having that exploited the whole time. Not through and the whole time, it was through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, where there were only 3 branches of government that were criminally foreign influence and delusions wrought, even if they made up the stories about the witch trials. Then and now, their takes on it, they're saying nothing on it. It is recorded in collusion with that leveraged against all strength and all weakness simultaneously, while being fake care against it, and while being fake value as justice, which justice is a negative value nature. And so we have a fact treatment nature maintained manifest, what they knew would be maintained manifest, which is the World Trade Center and other nations' equivalents. While there's a pathology of infrastructure in the suburbs, everywhere, let alone where there is the most overtly tactically denatured, the most beautiful parts of nature seen on internets and things. That's all landscape theater. They tactically denatured identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, which is native pure. And that's not just saying Native American. That's in relationship to the species identity of the volume. That's even worse. And it's even worse when anyone gets it wrong. The tactical degradation and theft of the actual republic, most logically, most needed to be explained how it was stolen from the Native Americans, even if that was untrue. For example, there are many ways it was recorded. Most scientific, the only capable. We're not going to forget that, but we need to put in counter positions. All that in relationship to what can't take regular positions, but dishonestly, sequence shifts. Because they already invested a whole bunch of people associated with like a Kevin Dillon, Sean Dillon, Anna Dillon, and some other guy, in the Dillon family, and all kinds of other men and women in a Leahy family who are involved with the policings of the schools. Two Mendez police, a whole bunch of officers that use the name of an Officer McGee, which they have only one of. A whole bunch of officers confessed that. And also has roles with other police from East Hartford, West Hartford, Hartford, New Britain, involved with predicate acts with falsified police reports. Human trafficking, for example, roles with stealing people's identities, including whole areas. The north end of Hartford. There's a Domain family too. These are people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with there's also a Casper family, and that I never had anything to do with it. Never had a class with them. There's an Anthony Agman I had a class with. I never had anything to do with him. He sat on the other side of the class. His brother, a couple times, I never had anything. I saw him, but I do know his brother. But him, I never had anything to do with. And there was only there was no one in my class. I mean, there were different classes though on that same floor too. They were using the databases in relationship to each. This is what I caught them doing with people on the child sex offender registry too, even if that's made up, because they're undercover, and how they're undercover with a whole bunch of nations too. That is recorded. They also pretended conversations with me and pretending I was talking about this stuff, which is proof of it. Like with this Leahy family, I never had a conversation with them at all. They pretended whole categorical conversations about me and my family in legal cases that they are recorded with their family members and with prosecutors, dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court. Recorded, pretending passions and emotions with little kids, each age of fact treatment nature, because their roles with identity thefts. Falsified audio and video. This is also in relationship to their roles to keeping our sanctioning bodies, and as our sanctioning bodies, where they could only counter sick things like wars and all the threats that are maintained on the edge of being manifest in a moment, not by accident. This is how modern nations, semi-ancient nations before them, were using identity. You can't defend that and afford free speech and with science at the same time. value true. So they knew this offensively. That which kept and keeps each age of correlation nature a certain kind of stupid, while a certain kind of genius, and it can't help but be. Because they have. Now this is where we come to Dr. Oz and WFSB. In the fact-sheeping nature, you have to be able to counter the doctors because they pretend passions and emotions because of their roles with it recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They also say things out of sequence to pretend they're saying, and they also have the word said in communications involved with their roles with the child offenders of juxtaposed natures, including organized crime natures, and a Joshua Julian, involved with people through time, involved all along routes, and exits of highways. Every time they make formal fact treatments, it's about identity of the ground locations. And is after this already sustained the sophistication of each age made to self-value sequence shifts that are exploited off the campuses. And they already were roles with this originally still made everyone self-value it. Way worse than that. As identity thefts, frauds, and this is why and how really no one allows anyone to connect all the points of correlation that show that and how there are all locations forsaken and all self-valued roles, with that especially easiest to discern through how they're exploiting the most forsaken, which is the most tactically denatured, and simultaneously with the most people on top of it. There's no one growing food there directly. And the standards are self-valued. They can't defend that and speak about morality, but they're speaking about morality anyway. They're defending settle it in court. The courts are recorded already involved, preemptively with the locations, crimes through time connected. That's what I'm talking to you about, this Dillon family and my town's police chief, Cintron. And there are people from Puerto Rico with that name and involved with them. Even the prisons tied to these people and on and off the state judicial branch offices, on and off the state prison offices, all along that route that is half Hartford, half Wethersfield, and the other side of it, going into the heart of Hartford, parallel to the Berlin Turnpike and the roads between. The Berlin Turnpike also going towards the heart of Hartford, and where they had slavery in Hartford and Wethersfield here, left by George Washington because he was still fact-cheaping nature enslaved. They were stealing his identity. Everyone's. They were database relationships that were entrenched in multi-layered motivations for evil, needs for evil, counter evil, to blame to react and then blame things to justify it, because nature's course is simultaneously constant. Needs to simultaneously self-value that nature's course. So, for example, they have wire crimes, acts, and methods with judges that pretend they're worried about people's health care when they are preventing offensively anyone from reporting what they are involved with, which is sustained, criminally foreign influenced uses, even of all elections locations. Wethersfield town offices has a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with uses of parks, with houses next to parks. For example, houses next to the community center are involved with a whole bunch of people associated with the Dillon family, involved with untimely deaths locations that they were involved with predicate acts with. A whole bunch, and people confessed, recorded, demonstrated this. But this is the executive branch, as people also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, on Farmington Avenue or Asylum Avenue, down the street from the, I forget which street it is, down the street from the Harriet Beecher Stowe / Mark Twain house. But the Burroughs book, In America, Come Look, we're going to write about this. And to fund. See, because I need help because because of their wire crime methods, interbranch fabricating audio and video. Now this is recorded. There are Joe DeMauro and a number of people with the name Joe DeMauro and women in their family, and associated with the Wethersfield police people, a whole bunch of them, with this Dillon family also, with families with their extended family members, also that I barely know, and not at all, like a Joshua Julian. He's also recorded involved with Joshua Stryker, recorded, confessed, demonstrated involved with identity thefts, frauds, racketeering through people that I know he never said anything to me personally. Never had one word of conversation with him. Now, that's also people recorded, like Oliveri's family and others that are tied to the house with extended family members, like a Scalora family, and with a Phil Clough further involved with the Child Defenders Campus, that the police of it were involved with, and dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts involved already with all kinds of predicate acts and cases against everyone. And against individuals, groups, and together, sickly, the same way that their takes on what witch trials were about. Leaving out all that is in conjunction too with correlation nature, which again is identity nature, in relationship to what we knew was overtly entrenched as slavery laws that demonstrate a breaching organized crime method. Now, this also demonstrated worse than criminal incompetence, breaching screens, tools, weapons, and worse, employed that way, everyone. And see, that is never examined, not by accident, because there are all fake sides of the individual group and why we are a species, identity of volumes, so we could see what is positive simultaneously or not. So we could discern the difference between positive as criminal insidiousness nature and negative justice as criminal insidiousness nature pretended positive. And then defended, can't afford, discerned also simultaneously how passions and emotions have a simultaneous identity of relationship to 5 identities of sequence nature / simultaneous nature simultaneously as one trinity nature. For example, exactly why and how time is bonded with those 3 parts we know are true, not denying exceptions about time from the past actively, and we know to come progressively, but we just don't know the extent of it. But we know those other semi-natures of what is true always, not and as all exceptions in exception nature. That is a scientific value. It is most probable and demonstrable that and how the ancients, not only did they use the name Allah and other names of gods per a method that's individual grouped and together, making sure there are accordance as much as they can as the order of the finite's identity of relationship to itself that's going to reveal evolution's fruits and gifts, and connected series of revelations, but ones that are natural, ones that are native pure. No matter who you are, be sure. It is which identity is best speaking for the species body of volumes, is simultaneously speaking best as what is positive and not as criminal and seditious nature, It values individual first, then group, then species body of volume. That's a quality of fact, chibi nature, that reveals evolution. Fruits and gifts. When there is criminal insidious nature, I'm not Lord, not please form a criminal. We're going to demonstrate their physical delusions. For example, in relationship to their opinions regarding what witch trials are about. Worse than criminal incompetence because of how each branch of government, just like each person, is a victim. That is maintained by a method that already maintained. Rolls with the sabotage of the finite, active and progressive, knowing sequence shifts roles, self-valued by identity to the ground, stewards, relationships and location, uses of the identity of volume. That is also only increasing, where and as and how we are invisible but still discernible. Identity of volume as the identity that is of the body of forever. As the identity of volume that has all identities of volume progression. In demonstration of how identity is bigger than body. How the cell nucleus, the cell manifest, the cell nucleus, cell wall, cell body, cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. They are manifest. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. In demonstration of a trinity that is also they are coming from inside of. And its complete nature is a complete nature of relationship to the two identities of sequence nature, and more than just gases and elements of earth coming through. For example, so in other words, two, interbranch is recorded threatening me. It's all right if they want to pretend to put them on writing. We don't have time for this. This is since before all this stuff with the coronavirus too. And these are people also demonstrably involved with too many natures of organized crime with interbranch, fabricating audio and video. Already did that, already rolls with that, already uses of that as their roles with the child campuses criminally. So I'm going to draw for you this, for example. We have a circle, and then we have a few classes, a few different teachers, maybe 3 or 4, okay? And then maybe in each class we have 10, 15 kids. And they can be in the same grade. But they have the same teacher. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I had no complaints about my teachers. I explained the exception, for example, and /S, in relationship to a Mr. Johnson I never had a class with. But he nonverbal, I never had any verbal words with him either. But he non-verbally recorded, confessed, and demonstrated roles that abridged, that made worse, confessions by an O'Brien family that was one of the people in the other classes that I never knew, even though they were in my grade, that were involved with them with an organized crime method, with databases, and further exploited with areas through time. So they are kept criminally foreign influenced. But when you're talking about individuals, you simultaneously have to be talking about the courts because they're crime methods. For example, in relationship to Dr. Oz, WFSB, they have crime methods with databases where they pretend they don't realize everyone's speaking through others. And they have legitimate reasons to do this because everyone's knaves, because they're victim-predator reactions. Originally still, in relationship to all the identities of the law involved with manifest crime methods on inter-campuses connected, including medical campuses. So we have to have mandated law followed, but they have the crime method. For example, if you call up to have, or if you ask online for help with a doctor, what is actually recorded is because they have people that take drugs with them. They have that's gonna control how they have to speak. Once they take that, then they have to go 30 days. And there are all kinds of natures of side effects and things like that. They're using like Joseph Mengele type stuff, which that was the overtly sick, to keep it what is simultaneously overtly and insidiously self-valued, worse than obfuscated. For example, because this is also intermilitary with Hartford Hospital. That is involved also with the counters to the World Trade Center attack, collusion with it. Now this is also with the media, with people on and off their locations that anticipated and exploited all that is on and off Fox Connecticut News, the buildings next to them with the agencies. And with the buildings with like these two Mendes police, the Domain family, my town's police chief, his extended family members, Mazzucatos. They're recorded. I don't have anything to do with them. I never had a problem with them till and they're involved with some Wethersfield police chief and other people putting fake audio and video, and all along roads and routes. People involved with like a Fred Grisey, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with interbranch and foreign. All people on and off the end of the and with courts, with judges and prosecutors already invested, needing to hide from what is their roles with this database organized crime method. That is also with areas where and how what is actually recorded is that and how they were using and are using investigators and investigations to hide lipoaggressions that are criminally maintained through a criminally foreign influenced, clear as day, is night, predicate acts delivery system method that American history is actually about. And we'll examine this also recorded, the same House/S, recorded involved with organized crime as victims also, because this is also a child abuse method that maintained all uses of things like truths like right to lie for lies. Then they had to hide that in relationship to the other investigations. They put them, this is sophistication. We have the LRPQ computer. It gathers physical informations and connections between the databases. The databases, American history is, you can't tell American history if you don't understand the actually recorded roles per correlation with database, illusion stacking, finite, active, and progressive, sequence racketeering, the value of sequence racketeering, the value of the order of the finite racketeering, the value of the order of what is active, progressive, in identities, simultaneous natures, semi-nature, complete nature relationship to itself, where and how it will only stay simultaneous nature. Its value progression system, which these are tactically ulterior from, to maintain all styles manifest, nature's needs manifest, incapable of defending themselves in that and of affording mandated law followed, in relationship to the course of logic not criminally foreign influenced, and making use of correlation nature simultaneously inherent active and progressive means, and beyond that, as the identity proper for each nation clear, see means appear, Bach sings. And the gifts, the fruits and gifts that Santa brings to species then. So we have to put together correlation. We're gonna claim all identity of the ground locations unacceptable, and the means to maintain them, to afford maintenance of such. We have to simplify things that were complicated by this breaching method to maintain those complications self-valued, to maintain, manifest what is only capable of self-valuing lie progressions from each database relationship, from each overt criminal enterprise relationship, from each private self-valued criminal foreign influenced enterprise, and even legalized that way. That is evidence. It is evidence that people want to have debates about what is evidence criminally to get over on correlation nature. Self-valuing time treatments used always too fast, too slow to prevent the relevance of sequence true and of all the recorded falsified audio and video and methods of that interbranch, and how it is recorded also in other nations I've never even been to, manifest there also. There is much recorded when people speak. A Whisper Creek, Bach sings. It teaches things. So also it recorded as evidence are offensive roles with and acts as predicate acts that Wethersfield Interbranch had and has as Connecticut's capital. Also with people with New Haven, former director of the FBI down, whole bunch of people tied to Two Rod Highway, associated with this Dillon family. I forgot the other Dillon guy's name. I never had a conversation with anyone, any of them. There were also the judges and prosecutors involved with them with crime methods. While they have been preventing mandated law, they've been attaching me and my family members and other people and their family members to fake locations, fake sequence relationships, fake relationships to strangers, fake natures of relationships to people. Like this Joshua Julian. I never had anything to do with him. There was one exception that they could pretend to record other, but there's no audio or video unless they made it up too, as they did with Two Mendes police on the Wethersfield Police Department. Put fake audio and video comment and me into quotes in relationship to Two Mendes police who are involved with these Dillons. There are a Kerr family. But everyone speaks to other people involved with the courts that are preventing people from speaking. For example, per the wire crime roles, and way worse, that are simultaneously overt and insidious. Also email. They put fake email narratives. They just show fake transcripts to courts. And those courts are already criminally foreign influenced. Roles as victims, but as victim predators, their family members, everyone they receive information through, recorded from off the campuses of each age and nature, connected. This rolls with this database method that is sickly distinctly intercampuses of each age and nature, connected, including the private campuses, including the homeschool people, recorded and involved with lie progressions tied to that, and the exploitation of the identity the scientists share, which is bigger than infinity. And it is bigger than infinity's identity, which is bigger than his body. But to discern this, you have to be using the science that is not denying the slightest finite exception or exception nature and sequence truth and sequence value of what is really true from before we were here, from when we were here, but before us. This has all been fabricated. Words like healthcare, values like healthcare, they are involved originally and still with what uses each modern nation's fact-cheaping nature by using their identities. Self-value, oh, this is a good thing, a positive thing. But then when it comes down time to it, when there are proofs, when they're not following mandated law through administrations, there is a recorded roles with database crimes. There are also recorded there crime method roles. This is where the private, the overt criminal enterprises, and the interbranch, having been and being used by the same organized crime breaching method, predicate acts delivery system method, is most manifest. And exploiting anomaly in relationship to databases. Again, vertically and horizontally stacked with illusions, because they're discrediting people that are with real integrity and truth. And as that, not denying exceptions and exception nature. Now these are courts, and our prosecutors recorded, confessed, and demonstrated also involved with physics and with the value/value progression in relationship to how they also exploit like fact-cheaping nature phenomena associated with how some streets in the towns have two names, but they're one street. For example, that's involved with fact-cheaping nature racketeering and way worse than war crimes that are interbranch, are intermilitary, interprivate, overt criminal enterprises were recorded, actually recorded, involved with originally and still. All database relationships also to how they are. Like so, basically, what is described, never built a computer myself. What is described, what they have to do, is how everything works. It is a value/value progression. And the slash is a semi-nature, as the one identity of value progression, but as a distinct identity of it simultaneously. So they're also labeling, attaching more identities of acts and of individuals as nature, as value/value nature simultaneously into the the identity of the body of all the syntax in time. No, with the identity bigger than time in every instance, not just the identity of the computer and of the interfaces, but this identity of value progression. That is the answer /S to how each science works. For example, so that you could be an expert on algorithms. We would start learning because we have to teach because of the that's what I'm trying to say too. New York is they're not. Please, YouTube algorithm, show this to the people in New York because I have a plan. That all you have to do is admit this damages in relationship to this breaching method. Therefore, people could claim other, but they're going to have to self-value criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatments to do it. New York. So we're going to draw a cartoon. Positions. The real forsaken positions. The real things we're going to have to counter, we make the character to guide us through that counter. The real resources we need, we're going to use the pamphleteer. Pamphleteer/S. Game/S. It only feels like game evolution science. And we're going to design a plan So then we start, and simultaneously are manifest as value to the people around us too. See, but we don't be led by, oh, is it or not? Because these are people exploiting our ability to discern what is differentially in relationship to our fact-shaping nature. So we have positive or negative. We have, forget sequence. We just keep going. No one's looking. Each identity, the ground, location, stewards. Roles with invested as native fact achievements by investigators and investigations themselves, only capable of self-valuing. All that is correlation nature is obligated to demonstrate about, and as American history's actual course. So nations A1 through Z whatever, even though they fight, they have a whole bunch of people relying upon contrast to defend, to pretend they don't realize what is going on with the databases, what everyone, what the branches are really recorded as. That's evidence. That's correlation nature. You've never heard American history but through criminal foreign influence natures, of criminal incestuous natures like wrongdoers, wrongdoing, self-valued roles, therefore identities in relationship to positive and negative. Oh, emotions are one thing or not. Leave out sequence though. Sick. Either emotions or we're sick, we're killers. Oh, but we're calm with it. You have little punks with guns and gavels because of how they are victims. You think it's not scary to say that to them? See, but they can't afford to speak, but until they have people right before them where they know they've been fabricated, their roles, needs, and natures that fabricate faked audio and video into databases that pretend to be about positive and negative righteously. Oh, but that's just how they know statutes are criminally foreign influenced. Delusions raw. They know that all the people tied to them privately know they are kept in their family members, kept needing to hide. This big world, small world, everyone speaking through everyone else, having been and being exploited. The directors of our agencies themselves, worse than here and there, worse than criminal incompetence. They fight with each other as fact-cheating nature that need to pretend it's about politics, that's not a politician, all kinds of narratives that are nothing, physical delusions. That's evidence. So the one thing that all fake sides of correlation nature shares is speaking about their own and about other people's passions and emotions dishonestly. No, per the roles with that simultaneously overt and simultaneously insidious breaching method, and how it was insidious simultaneously is not by accident left out. The whole world blaming it on prejudice. Oh, it's prejudice. Oh, our founding parents had slavery. They were all slaves. They put that black and white narrative because they were building a fact-cheating nature's premises styles. A minority from every country, including black and white nations in collusion. Also as victims. Also as shock and awe. Blaming other things, others themselves when they had to react as they only knew how. Not by accident. So, just for that order, you know how much space there is throughout America that would help? Say we have 10,000 people. say we have just in a real small space, and we're going to make and we're going to have everyone. We could set up things. We could have what they call legislation, for reliefs of all kinds of natures, to make it free. Why could a government, they have land and stuff like that anyway? Why couldn't they put up, nice bathroom and stuff like that, make people, if we don't know what to do with the space, and we don't have space at once, not by accident, per a breaching method, and to sustain roles with that, nothing to do with it, so blame it on other things. So we counter that by pulling people into this cradle as a species together. We have to enable each position of the human fact-keeping nature, each age of it, the means to admit practical that is actually practical. And this uses the phenomenon of the increasingly positive thing about how all opinion natures, all conviction natures originally still recorded, delusions wrought, criminally foreign influenced, premises treatments that are a qualitative fact-keeping nature that can't defend themselves in value, and or nor stand, nor afford. All that correlation nature is supposed to be able to do instantly just by knowing American history true. See, we have the experts on the knowledge of the most self-valued roles with the sequence shifts, tied to the database crime, tied to the time treatments of positive and negative, where each age is shock and awe. And that's self-valued because of it. This is simultaneously overtly and sickly. Well, so they can't admit pseudoscience and this as the reasons why what they call poverty is standing manifest. Worse than that, because they came through criminally foreign influence sciences that self-valued roles with identity racketeering, way worse than war crimes, but simple organized crime method. I believe racketeering is the name. But that word racketeering, however, is also recorded having been used and our Organized Crime Control Act. And you have to name something. Everyone's victim predators, maintained by this method that uses everyone remotely since before electronic definitions of that. By keeping all database relationships needed to hide line progressions in relationship to correlation natures and identity natures, in relationship to our value/value progression, how it is exploited. By a breaching method that against everyone, but by one that no one discerned, because it engineered not just all liars, not just the styles of lying, methods of pretending other, blaming on other things other than self, the knaves part of it, then they know and will admit, or that is discernible readily. All of it is readily discernible. So there are people now that are preventing me from clearing up databases and wire crime acts and mail crime acts and falsified audio and video interbranch and private and database crime method roles. For example, when you they want to keep more and more strangers they call experts to speak about what is recorded. They don't even know about it. Why? Then they stack names of people needed to be used by victims of the interbranch and all private tied to them, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. Then they pretend you're saying bad things about people. These are people that sustain child abuses, even sexual and medical, as women, pretending passions and emotions know, but not on paper. They can't put anything on paper. So they've been sequence shifting. These are people involved with a pattern of confessions of all kinds of natures and context and uses of them, which demonstrates